Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri vel hukleden min lisani yefkahu kavli. Rabbena la tuzigh qulubana ba'de iz hadaytana ve hab lana min ledunke rahmeten inneke entel vehhab. Allahümme erinel hakka hakkan verzukna ittibahu ve erinel batila batilan verzukna istinabahu. Allahümme nawwir qulubana ve şrah sudurana bin nuril Kur'ani vel imani vel islam. Allahümme salli ala seyyidina Muhammedin ve ala alihi ve ashabihi ve atba'ihi ve sellim. Selamun alaikum ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussion about the miraculousness of Quran. And as you can see on the screen, this is the 25th word, third light and third gleam. It's been more than a year since we started this 25th word, and I guess we are approaching to the end, not too fast, but still approaching. And inshallah, today we will study a different aspect of miraculousness of Quran. As you would remember, in the third light, the first gleam, second gleam, was all about the comparison of Quran with the human words or philosophy, how the human mind or human understanding by itself cannot reach or even not cannot be compared with the wisdom of Quran. And today we will study a different aspect, as I said, but very interesting. This time we will look at the people, the products of people, or the understanding of people who are believers, who are studying Quran, somehow being affected by Quran or following Quran in their styles, but still producing some stuff, let's say the understanding of the reality, not from a Quranic perspective, but from their own perspective. Again, these people are, trying to understand the reality, trying to find the truth, and studying Quran, benefiting Quran, and assuming that they are following Quran. But when we look at their, let's say, the writings, books, you realize that there's something different than Quran, as if it is, being taught by Quran, but then creating their own paths, let's say. And then today we will study how such sayings, how such, the ideologies or products, intellectual products, cannot again be compared with Quran itself, with the Quranic wisdom. So previously it was kind of easy, right? We were studying the truth versus falsehood. And it was easy to see the difference. It was easy to know where you stand with respect to two. One would harm you, the other one would satisfy you, and you would say, okay, my mind, my heart, my spirit, my soul, everything except truth, and I prefer truth versus falsehood, you would say. But this time we will talk about a truth as it is perceived by different people and narrated by different people and understood by different people, and how these partial understandings cannot be compared with the truth as narrated by Quran. Even the word truth, at least to me, doesn't mean much, to be honest, because by itself, like something becomes true as a what is there was a fancy word for that. I forgot. Like you mentioned truth of something, right? The truth itself is not a thing. So, for instance, I give you a sentence, a proposition, and say that that there are 5 books on the desk, and this sentence is either true or not, depending on how many books I have on my desk. When we talk about truth by itself, it sounds like we mean something, but because there is no nothing behind it that it refers, like the sentence, the 5 books on the desk, it sounds, at least to me, there's something missing, like truth of what? But anyway, we, in our culture, especially in our discussions about the belief, we are accustomed to use the word truth. So I will continue using it. But as I said, I'm not much comfortable with the word as it is used by itself as a single thing without referring to any other things. Anyway, I'm sorry, I couldn't find the right words. So if you have any initial comments, questions, we can start from there. I'm sure you have some. Today you need to help me a lot. We are missing a friend of us who used to talk. And now, I'm looking at the participants.
It's okay, I'm here.
Okay, that's great. Okay, yeah, I was referring to you. Okay, so we have people who would talk. Okay,
I just want to add one, I think, just since you mentioned the truth, one at least view that I grew up with in Mauritania. I think that when people refer to the truth in this kind of in this kind of discussions, like religious discussions or referring to their own faith or belief, I think at least that's my understanding. I think that they usually view the believers as people who are true to themselves, that they don't avoid the truth. It's almost like they don't have even to put any effort to be true to themselves. It's just natural for them to believe in their own creator and to see the doing of their own creator in their life. And those who don't follow the truth as those who almost are like betraying themselves, like, and they see it, they are lying to themselves and they know it. And that's becomes something deviating from the truth. You know what I mean? At least that's how we view it.
Jazakallah khairan. That's a really interesting way of looking at the idea of truth, and I can definitely, empathize with this. Any other initial comments, maybe questions? Nothing? Okay, then let's start with the text, inshallah. Just give me a second, please. Okay, yalla. Third gleam. In the second gleam, we pointed to the fall of human philosophy before Quranic wisdom and to the miraculousness of Quranic wisdom. In the second gleam, the previous one, the one we studied last week and maybe the week before, we pointed to the fall of human philosophy, or let's say, any ideology that do not take revelation as the source of knowledge, source of understanding, but saying that no, human beings with their minds can already reach the knowledge, and then like we don't need any external the source other than this nature, whatever it means. We don't need such an external source to guide us. This is what I understand when author says human philosophy. And this is, like, I know it's, we always use the word philosophy, but it is actually, like in the original, it's just the ideas of human beings, hikmeti beşeriye. So anyway, fall of human philosophy before Quranic wisdom and to the miraculousness of Quranic wisdom. Now, in this gleam, we shall show the degree of wisdom and science before Quranic wisdom of the purified scholars, the saints, and the enlightened among philosophers, the Ishrakiyun. It's a technical term, doesn't matter, who are all students of Quran. This is the important part. So he says, now we will look at the wisdom and science of those who are all students of Quran, and shall make a brief indication to the Quran's miraculousness in this respect. So we, like the terms in the translation used are purified scholars, the saints, enlightened people. So nothing mystical here, by the way. Like the saints, don't take it as, a saint in the popular culture, where there's something mystical or something special about the person. The saints in this context, it could be Evliya or Asfiya in the Arabic. It's those who are following Prophet and his students, or those who invest their life in getting closer to their Lord. Okay, so again, you don't have to think about mystical stuff here. And we shall make a brief indication to the Quran's miraculousness in this respect. So we will compare them with Quran and make it even clearer that Quran has a miraculous aspect. A most true indication of the all-wise Quran's sublimity, and a most clear proof of its truth and justice, and a most powerful sign of its miraculousness is this: preserving all the degrees of all the areas of divine unity. Preserving all the degrees of all areas of the divine unity, together with all their necessities. So whatever aspects, all different dimensions, like infinitely many dimensions, infinitely, all these dimensions, each of them having infinite depth by itself, but keeping all of them and all their degrees together, explaining them all together with all their necessities, having this perfect balance and expounding them. It has preserved their balance and not spoiled it. So when you look at the Quran, author says, you don't see only one aspect. You see all these aspects all together in a balance. So for instance, Quran doesn't talk about only merciful things, only beautiful things, only love. This is not the only thing we experience. We experience all other aspects of divine unity as well. And Quran touches upon all of them and study them or explain them in a perfect balance. That's what I understand. It has preserved the balance of all the exalted divine truths, and it has brought together all the ordinances dictated by the divine names and preserved their mutual proportion. And it has brought together the dominical and divine acts with perfect balance. So author talks about different things here. Just a second. I apologize for that. So author is talking about different things here, like divine acts, divine names, divine truths. And the way I understand, I might be wrong, but author is saying one thing, for instance, all the areas of divine unity, and then it's explaining it. Oh, I mean, all the exalted divine truths, by which I mean, all the different names that you experience in this reality. By this, I mean, all the dominical and divine acts that you see in the creation. So we know about the divine names through these divine acts, the things that are happening in front of us, things that take place in front of our eyes. And then through these divine names, we know about the divine truths and so on. Thus, this preserving and balance and bringing together is a characteristic which is certainly not present in men's works, nor in the products of the thought of the eminent among humankind. It is to be found nowhere in the works of the saints who have penetrated to the inner face of beings. So if you look at the works of saints who have penetrated to the inner face of beings, so I don't know, like you can count different, you can think of different saints. For instance, Ibn al-Arabi, right, the famous one. You look at his works and you will realize that he's talking about some things that are not visible to eye, at least not all eyes, as if he have access to inner face of beings. So author is saying, to my understanding, that if you look at their works, you will see some rightful things there, true things, but you wouldn't see this balance. These works will be about only one thing and one thing only, and to the extent almost denying the other things from time to time. So for instance, if you look at some spiritual teachings, you will realize that some of them only talking about the love of God, and saying that everything is only love and nothing more, almost denying the things that we don't like in this creation. It is to be found nowhere in the works of the saints who have penetrated to the inner face of beings, which looks to their creator. So like the inner face of beings, which looks to their creator, but still in their works, they may miss some faces. Nor in the books of the Ishraqiyun, who have passed to the inward hidden meaning of things, nor in the knowledge of the spiritual, who have penetrated to the world of the unseen. So author is not denying any of these, right? Saying that, yeah, you will see all these different works, and they are out there. Like this is not the first time we hear, I believe. Just search, the Islamic literature, or go to Google or your favorite search engine and say Islamic, I don't know, book. Probably more than, let's say, 60-70% chance, probability, what you will see, it's about such stuff. And while not denying their truthfulness, the author says, in their works, you will not see this perfect balance about different aspects of reality. As though they have practiced a division of labor. That's, I guess, a perfect way of explaining it. As though they have practiced a division of labor, it is as if each group adheres to only one or two branches of the mighty tree of reality, which reminds me the division of sciences in academia. Each busies itself with only its fruit or its leaves. So only one or two branches they stick, hence they only concern about the fruits or the leaves of these one or two branches. They either know nothing of the others or else do not concern themselves with them. Ayşenur and Abdurrahman, I don't know how to thank you. So please go ahead.
I wasn't sure if I should interrupt you because you just kept going.
You should definitely interrupt me as well. So please do, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for this general introduction to the text and preparing our minds to the topic at hand. You mentioned that everything that this paragraph is talking about, like how the Quran brings together the dominical and divine acts with perfect balance, right? That these are things that I witness in my life. And I was thinking about how, I am in need of, if something is going to proclaim itself to be guidance for me, I need it to be comprehensive of my human experience, which looks to, joyful moments, happy moments, but also very sorrowful moments, or moments of turmoil or destruction. I need that guidance. I need to know, first of all, that guidance is coming from a source that is, for lack of better wording, aware of what I am going through, right? And that awareness, in this case, is by virtue of being the source of existence of everything that I'm experiencing, the things that I like and the things that I don't like. But it needs to be comprehensive in that sense. And, I was watching this documentary, and in it, there's wildebeests, like these animals in hordes that lions hunt down and whatnot. And apparently they do like this, the largest migration of any species or whatever in every year. I don't know, is it 300 million or something? I don't know, but it's a lot of this type of animal. It's kind of like a goat, and they're just migrating, and they have to cross this river at one point. And in the documentary, one of the animals, they went into the river first by themselves, and as soon as they went in, like, I saw the crocodile coming, and I was like, oh no, like, I hope it makes it to the other side, but the crocodile got it, and it was goodbye to the wildebeest. He didn't make it across the river. And I see that death. I see that sort of, sometimes terror. And, of course, we can say that it's also a form of mercy for this, ecosystem or whatever, or order that's going on. And yes, but at the same time, there are things that I am witnessing or seeing both in creation and also, in the creation of my own self and my own experiences, that that are not always butterflies and rainbows, right? So I guess, I'm just sort of reiterating the point that you made and just emphasizing it further, which is that I need that source of guidance. I need then the Quran to also be comprehensive and provide that balance that this text here is talking about, of this proportion, mutual proportion between the divine names and qualities that I'm experiencing. And sometimes I don't see that balance in my own life, right? I see some names more than others. But I guess by seeing the balance in the Quran itself, it also reminds me that, hey, there is that balance in your own life as well, and I need to seek it. I need to be an active observer, active witnesser, active listener of what is going on. Because I might have a tendency to just focus on a few names, or get lost in my own sort of turmoil and not be able to see anything good, right? Or vice versa, not be able to see the sort of, well, I mean, I guess that's not the case, because we all tend to sort of focus on the hard or difficulties or sadnesses in our life more, right? But that there is this sort of, I don't know how well I'm articulating it, but that there's this balance and preservation of all, as it says, all the degrees of all the areas of divine unity, this divine unity in my life, and being open to seeing it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say for now.
Can I just
Oh, never mind, there's more.
I was just going to say, because the life we experience is not all butterflies and rainbows, as you mentioned, it makes sense. I mean, it's necessary that the Quran speaks to me about things that are further than just mercy, because I don't see just mercy. I see many different things, and the Quran, rightly so, covers those aspects in its own terms, talking about the pain you might feel, or the darkness you might go through, or the punishment that you will endure if you don't act correctly based on how you're supposed to be acting. And I need the Quran to be talking about how a civilization will be punished, for example, because I feel like that happens in my own personal life. And then I can read the Quran and be like, okay, so this is why that happened, and maybe this is how I need to change my actions. So it makes sense that a Quran, or a creator that created something amazingly beautiful and so vast, but also created this life which has so many different colors to it, would also then send us a message which is just completely talking about every aspect of your life.
Right, but it's also reminding me here, I guess, that the colors look to each other, that the names and qualities look to each other, and that where there is, this was a presentation made by one of our friends a few years ago, of like how every time there's descriptions of hell or torture, immediately the Quran is also mentioning God's mercy, right? And that when I see one divine name, I have to tell myself, okay, how is this connected to the others? How is this difficult moment connecting me to divine mercy as well? Or how is this moment of divine mercy also connecting me to, being conscious of consequence and justice? So I guess this sort of interconnectedness and seeking that balance in my own life as well. Just wanted to,
Jazakallah khairan. These are really important points, that the balance, at least from our aspect, it's first and foremost, it's about our life. And in our life, we are, most of the times, we don't see the balance. We see all these fluctuations, we see chaotic actions and happenings. And we desperately need an understanding, a guidance, a revelation that would put all these, the chaotic, seemingly chaotic things into a bubble, stir it, cook it, and then serve it as serve us as a balanced entity, showing us everything in our life actually follows a perfect balance, a perfect wisdom, rather than denying any aspect, rather than just overlooking certain things that we cannot accept. In front of eyes, bad things happen, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And we need an understanding, we need an explanation that also makes sense in the light of these seemingly bad things as well. I was, a few years ago, probably I already shared this before, I was listening a religious leader, doesn't matter what religion he was from, and he was saying how difficult to explain certain aspect of the life. So, for instance, something bad happens, and I believe he was saying that God is with us in this creation and weeping with us. He's also sad that this bad thing happened. I mean, it may sound, poetic, it may sound romantic, but it's obviously simply means that, do you know what? My religious understanding doesn't have any explanation for that. We just, cover it. We throw a few fancy words, and then the rest is, we don't need to explain. But according to Quran, the author here, Quran, when it touches upon the reality, explains it from every aspect, in its every dimension, good or bad, at least to us, seemingly good, seemingly bad, seemingly exciting, seemingly boring. It doesn't matter, in a perfect balance. And even for those, as author says, even with the works of those who are students of Quran, you don't see this balance. They touch upon one or maybe two different aspects, and then studying it. So I guess what is mentioned here is different than, when you, for instance, try to interpret a verse in Quran, the ayah, of course, whatever you say will be only part of it. That's for sure. But also beyond that, we know certain groups or certain people, certain ideologies, or a certain part of me. We only concentrate on one or two aspects. We say that, for instance, if I'm a spiritual person, wherever I look, I only talk about these spiritual aspects. If I'm a person of, let's say, logic, wherever I look, I only see logical arguments and nothing else. Okay, let's go. Abdulaziz, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for bringing these important points. Jazakumullah khair. I just, as we were discussing this, I thought about an ayah in Surah Al-Rum, and I'm gonna read the translation in English. Actually, I'll start with the Arabic. It is وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلْقُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافُ أَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَأَلْوَانِكُمْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And the translation is, among his signs is the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the variations in your languages and your colors. Yeah, I can't read the next word, but that are signs for those who know. So what I want to point out here, or at least what I was thinking about, is that those variations of languages and colors kind of maybe they come from the same source. So what I mean here is that some of these authors or schools of thinking about Quran are taking a shape like I don't know, of one color, like taking the form of one color, and another one would take the form of another color, but they all come from the same source, and their variation is something actually to think about. And I think in the very first paragraph, the author closed with that. The very first paragraph, can you go up? I think he wanted to say indication to the Quran miraculousness in this respect. Like all these, like there is something when you think about this actually a miraculous on its own. Yeah, I don't know if I made this clear, but Birkan, you're used to my broken English, so hopefully I explained this enough. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Jazakallah khair. I think it was clear for everybody, not only for me, since you have this gift of eloquence, alhamdulillah. So this variety, these different colors, it's a huge topic, especially nowadays, right? Wherever we look, we see discussions about the diversity, differences, and so on. And what we are studying here today is also one way or another is related to that. So I have maybe a few comments about that, but before that, let me read the next paragraph as well. And then before reading an example that author will give, we may continue discussing about these varieties, differences. Absolute reality cannot be comprehended by restricted views. A universal view, like the Quran, is necessary in order to comprehend it. For sure, they are instructed by Quran. So they here referring to those saints and other people. For sure, they are instructed by the Quran. But with a particular mind, they can only see completely one or two sides of universal reality, are preoccupied with them, and imprisoned in them. So not that, this is how I understand. It's not that Quran only gives them a partial truth or the part of the reality. Or it's not that, whoever studies Quran has to be that way. But I guess author is saying that if you are preoccupied and if you, condition yourself that this is how am I going to study Quran, only looking from this perspective. So I'm a scientist, I spend 30 plus years to study physics, and I'm an expert in quantum physics, and I will open the Quran and whatever I read will tell me something about the quantum physics. And every explanation I have will rely on some physical, the theories or physical understanding of this world. If you have these, the condition in your mind, if you are preoccupied with this, then you will have this very particular, very tiny understanding of Quran. Or a similar way, if you are saying that, oh, I'm a spiritual person, whatever I study in Quran, I will look at from the spiritual perspective. It has to be only about, my heart, how I feel, the relationship between people and other living beings, and nothing more. This is life for me, and everything I study Quran will relate to that. And if you look at my books, you will see this. I guess these examples can be, the increase in numbers. And this is how I understand. It's not that, author is saying that, the human beings are doomed to be partial. And when you read Quran, you only get a partial truth. Hence, this is the fact. I don't think author is saying that. Yes, we have our differences for sure, but if Quran is our teacher, which has this universal view, I guess our fate must be better than, being doomed by a partial truth. They spoil the balance of reality through their through either excess or negligence. And
Can I say something, brother?
Oh, please go ahead. Yes.
This was just on the last sentence that you were saying, because, so I mean, I guess you kind of answered my question, but so you're saying that it's not saying that we're doomed, and that the Quran can be a sort of guide to providing that universal view that is necessary for comprehension. But I guess, when reading this, the concerns that initially pop up in my head are, I mean, okay, even if the Quran has a universal view, do I have access to comprehending that universal view? Is it even possible for me to comprehend absolute reality? But maybe the text here is saying that the specific way that the Quran educates me makes possible a more comprehensive understanding. I don't know if that part is clear. And then also, when it's talking about these texts that fall short of providing the universal view that the Quran provides, I mean, in this sense, is this text then, does it not also fall short? Or is it also then imbalanced by providing an excess or negligence of something? I don't know. I mean, this is kind of like down a rabbit hole, I guess. But I guess, like, how should I practically take this universal view of the Quran? What should I practically take it to mean for me in relation to understanding absolute reality? And I mean, what am I supposed to understand from the notion of absolute reality here as well? That just seems like two big words meshed together. That sounds dramatic, but I'm not quite sure what to understand from absolute reality here as well. And even if that should even be my aim, I'm not sure.
Jazakallah khairan. That's a perfect question, I guess. Just to the is at the heart. What you're talking about is at the very heart, I guess, at the very core of the topic today.
And I'm not like necessarily directing it to you. I'm just kind of
I would actually.
So everyone else should take it to address them as well.
I would actually say that it's just what you said, that I may have some ideas. I don't know. I need to wait a little. to make sure that they are real ideas. Meanwhile, I'm sure others have some thoughts on that. So I would appreciate any attempt, like, even if you don't have an answer, you can just say, oh yeah, that's a question I also share, or there's something wrong with this question, or there's something I don't understand with this question. Maybe you have a better question, I don't know. Please go ahead. Suhail.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
I don't know if I have an answer to Aisha question, but my thoughts are, what is absolute reality? I guess in one sense, everybody is perceiving reality. We all have a restricted view of reality, as he points out earlier. Everybody takes reality from within their own. I guess everybody has a bias or some sort of inclination or that they pursue. As you mentioned, whether maybe they look at the legal or mechanistic aspect of reality, and that's their concern in life. Or they're concerned with quote unquote the spiritual aspect, and or theological or historical, or let's just say specifically with the Quran. So everybody has a perception. I mean, nothing is negating the other, though, per se, but everybody has a restricted view. It's not comprehensive, and it's impossible in a sense to be comprehensive, because you would have to be cognizant and develop an expertise or an understanding of all different aspects of life, which is in and of itself very difficult to do. I mean, it's impossible, really. Not only that, not only is that difficult, but to then have that perception like across time, not just within your space, but across time itself. For example, perceiving, let's use something as simple as like the law or like jurisprudence, fiqh. Everybody in their own time has a perception of what the law is, or what some legal ruling is, but that's changes across time. And no person within their period can perceive that. It's impossible, because they haven't lived in some other time. They all have a restricted view. It's not just space bound, but it's as in like my interest is X, Y, or Z, which is like space, but also time bound. I can't perceive beyond my own position in this world, in the life of the universe. So I don't know, for example, my perception of an event, good or evil. I don't know exactly what that entails, why it happened necessarily, what events in the past led up to it, what it means in the present, and what it implies in the future. I can't do that. The Quran can do that, because the speaker claims to be the one who grasps or has knowledge of the entirety of reality. And in other words, reality belongs to him alone. And I'm just one living it. And I can only perceive it from my subjective perspective, because I'm not beyond reality in and of itself. At least this reality, this world. Otherwise, as he says, like a universal view of the Quran is necessary in order to comprehend it. Because if I took away the Quran, in some sense, and people do this, like, I think the most stark example is, let's say, an atheist. An atheist will say, I have reality in my grasp. Or they may even say, I don't have the full even they will say they don't have the full comprehension, yet they in their claims, their truth claims, they say, I have a complete grasp of reality. Even though they say like, oh, we can't grasp reality, that's why I'm an atheist. But in a sense, they are making a judgment, a judgment of the nature of the world. You can see that they try to do that. They try to make a judgment in their perception, false perception of the world, but nonetheless, they try to make a judgment. And it's extremely, extremely, extremely narrow. In fact, it's reductionist. In fact, it's materialist. And they perceive nothing beyond that. That's taking away divine revelation. I mean, actually, not even taking away, that's just taking away the notion of something beyond the material world. I'm not even speaking of divine revelation. And that's what happens. Mankind, the human being, inherently will reduce things to his comprehension because he can't perceive the complete picture. So in order to comprehend it for himself, he will have to reduce it, just like a materialist does. They reduce the world to the material world because they can't comprehend anything beyond the material world. Whereas the Quran like sort of breaks that sort of that I guess that human like inclination to do so. It breaks that cycle and says, no, consider this, this, and this. And even if you don't consider, and even if you don't understand something, you can't deny it necessarily, but at least consider it, think about it, reflect on it from many different aspects. And the human being needs something from beyond itself to do that, because like we all have blind spots. We're all ignorant of something. That's just the nature of being a human. Is that no human being can ever say that they know something before they knew it. That's why they know something, because they were once ignorant of it. So to me, that's, I think, what he's trying to say, or is my understanding of what he's trying to say. And anybody who says they can perceive reality without revelation, I think the results are out there in the world. It's not possible. In fact, it's impossible. Because then it becomes your perception, and your perception by definition is restricted, as he says.
I guess your last sentence, thank you, Suhail, Jazakallah khairan. Your last sentence very clearly summarized the main message, which is you cannot grasp the reality in its all dimensions within a perfect balance without revelation. So revelation comes with the universal weave, as author says, and teaches you, guide you in your life from this universal weave. So you don't need to have the universal weave by yourself, which it's not there anyway, because your mentor, your guide has the universal weave and teaches you about every aspect. So going back to Ayşenur's question, and also Aziz comments about, although Aziz didn't mean that, but I just putting emphasis on these differences, varieties or diversity, whatever. I believe most of the assertions, the conclusions we come up, they are restricted in the sense that they are about the human beings themselves. And most of them are, not most of them, all of them are naturalistic, meaning when we try to understand the nature of knowledge or nature of truth, whether can we have a partial truth, can we have more than partial truth, partial understanding, can we have a universal understanding, does everything have to be relative? So on and so forth. When we try to answer these questions, we usually, the way I see at least, we usually follow a naturalistic the methodology, and we restrict ourselves within a naturalistic understanding. What does it mean? We look at the human beings like ourselves, we look at ourselves and see that the way I see reality is different than the way Atik sees the reality. I am on the corner of the table and I see the color of the table from this angle, which has a certain illumination feature, the properties, and the light is reflected on this side of the table in a different way than the part of the table that Atik is, sitting. Hence, he sees a different color, which is true. And because you have to be in a position, whatever you, how hard you try, however hard you try, no matter how hard you try, as a human being, created being who is bounded by space and time, you have to look at the table from an angle. Hence, the color of the table will be relative to your position, and you cannot talk about an absolute color of the table. So you can, apply this analogy to everything about the human being, which is true. If you restrict yourself to human understanding, human perception, if your human is an independent agent trying to see the reality, understand the reality, try to reach a knowledge by itself with its limited capacity, then yes, this is true. But when it comes to non-naturalistic, Quranic understanding of the reality, you don't gain any knowledge by looking at the table. The color of the table is being told to you. Your creator tells you that this is the color you see. And your creator creates in front of you a certain a table with a certain color. It's not that there's a relationship between your eyes and the table, and then the light source, and how the light is reflected, and so on and so forth. The color you see is not caused by these relationships. It is directly caused by your creator. He wishes you to see this color and then arranges everything accordingly. And you see that color. So these two are completely different, at least to me. In one of them, it's all about the human agents and their limited capacity. And when we look at the human beings like ourselves, it is true that we have this limited capacity. Whatever we study, it has to be partial and so on, if we are, again, attaining the knowledge. But from Quranic perspective, which is, what Suhail was saying, that understanding with revelation. So when you realize that you are a student of your Lord in a classroom, and everybody is fed with the knowledge which is appropriate for themselves, everybody is taught according to their needs and so on by the same creator who has the universal weave. Then I guess things become different. If he wants us to see the same color, we will see the same color. If he wants us all believers, he would do that, as he says in Quran. But he doesn't, for some reasons that again he explains in Quran. So our capacities and so on and so forth, they are, I guess, a matter of fact only from our perspectives. But once we understand that whatever we know is given to us, then we say, at least it is possible that the Quran will teach me that everything I need, not only part of it, but everything I need, if I'm open to listen to it. That being said, I guess, so hakikat-i mutlaka, the absolute reality, can be understood in different ways. Like we can understand the absolute reality as the absolute reality, whatever it means. We only say, there must be a truth of it, whether I have access to it or not. But at the same time, we can also understand it as the completeness of my experience. That I am given, I am shown different aspects, different names of the Creator in every experience I have. In every experience I have, there are different names, all manifested together within my experience. So Quran would teach me how to see all these names without marrying them or without, destroying their proportions, harmony. So the balance, the completeness in my experience. This doesn't mean that my experience is still different than your experience. It is different, but still from the Quranic wisdom, if I take the revelation and Quran as my teacher, I would see a perfect harmony in my experience. Whatever I am given, I would see all aspects. But if I'm preoccupied, if I'm imprisoned in my own biases, then within my experience, my own experience, I wouldn't see all the names. I would only see love, or I would only see mercy, or I would only see hatred, or power, or destruction. I wouldn't see everything. So this everything, as I said, could be, I guess, understood within the context of my own life. That I would see all the names in a perfect balance. Again, this doesn't negate that I have an experience which is different than Ayşe Nur. But it doesn't matter anymore. Because I am given whatever I am needed, whatever I am in need of. Not because I have, limited capacity or whatever. This is what I need, and I am given the perfect experience that I need. So yes, the differences, all these limited capacities, the partial things are out there. But I guess true revelation, we don't have to get lost in them. The problem is looking at the humans and seeing their limitations and saying that a calling that this is the absolute truth, that you have to be partial. if you are lost in a materialistic and naturalistic worldview, yes, this is true. But if you are a student of Quran and you let Quran to teach you rather than your preoccupations, then you don't have to be partial within the context of your experience. I hope I was able to, I made sense at least a little. So it's your turn. I talked a lot. At least any feedback, any parts that you disagree, any parts that you don't understand, I would appreciate, so that we can benefit from each other. Inshallah, if you can correct me, that would be fantastic. More than I could ask. Otherwise, we can continue with the example. We have, I guess, 10-15 minutes. Waiting a few more seconds.
I just.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
So I just have like a comment, I guess. Nothing much to say, but there's a wording that really piques my attention on the paragraph above, which says, "For sure, they're instructed by the Quran, but with a particular mind, they can only see completely one or two sides of universal reality, are preoccupied with them, and imprisoned in them." It's really the imprisonment that's like catching my attention, because so just for like myself, I feel like sometimes I can be imprisoned in my own views. Like, for example, let's say I have the view that mercy means that nothing is killed, but then I witness, so I kind of have my own meaning. I've given mercy a structure in my mind, like, okay, this is what mercy is. And then I look at the world and I see that in the animal kingdom, and even in humans, killing is very regular. In fact, in the animal kingdom, it's like necessary. You could say humans, we can live off plants or something, but I mean, even plants is like some form of killing. But then there's like this imprisonment in my worldview there, where I've kind of confined myself into, where now the Quran doesn't make sense to me, or the world doesn't make sense to me. My existence has stopped making sense to me. So, but what's interesting here is that here it's like, let's say I'm instructed correctly by the Quran on what mercy is, or on some other thing, but because I'm not able to grasp another aspect of the Quran when I read it, I can be imprisoned. If I think that what I read is the only correct thing, or if what I read is all of the correct thing, then it would lead to my imprisonment. I'm not sure what the correct way to then would be to read where I don't get imprisoned, because I guess just the fact that I do have a particular mind means that I will always I won't see it absolutely, or I won't see the instructions universally. I will always have a particular mind, and I will always not be able to fully grasp it. That's maybe one of the benefits, one of the purposes of having a comprehensive prophet, والسلام, like that's able to kind of embody all the different lessons in one. But for me, myself, I can maybe only embody a particular aspect of it. However, maybe I could see from people around me a different aspect of it. And that can help me kind of not fall into that imprisonment. So just really a comment, not even a question, but I just wanted to say that.
Jazakallah khairan. This is really important, like what imprisons us. So yeah, it is us, ourselves, imprison ourselves, but what it is that we do, and as a result, we imprison ourselves. So one thing comes to my mind. It doesn't need to be right. So I'm open to any the critics. when we look at the prophet, we see that the most important aspect of our prophet, which assume to be, which is, like we can see clearly when we study that, who has the most comprehensive, let's say, the message and understanding. And in his Miraj, ascension, he is being taught by other prophets. So covering the, the aspect of reality they already covered. So having this universal view, and he is the illiterate person. He didn't have any ideology filling his mind before revelation. He didn't have a certain education which shaped his mind before revelation. So his mind was pure, untouched, and ready for revelation to mold it, to shape it. When it comes to us, our minds are already shaped before sitting in front of Quran. I'm a scientist, you are a programmer, you are a doctor, you are an artist, you are a philosopher, you are a poet. And we sit in front of Quran with these titles. So I'm not, suggesting we shouldn't have any profession, but we do sit in front of Quran with these titles. So same goes with the author, right? When he refers to his old times, old Sayyid. He was a scholar, he was a great scholar. He knew, he memorized that many books, he knew all that many hadith, narrations, and so on. So he was a great scholar. And he didn't work for him. It didn't work for him. According to him, he found himself in a great turmoil. In a desperate situation. In the second term, the new Sayyid, as he says, you see, he denounces all these titles now. Because this is something we cannot easily do. We cannot denounce our titles. We cannot denounce our educations. We cannot let the revelation to shape us. I already have a certain understanding of reality shaped by mostly, let's be realistic, mostly secular worldviews who actively deny revelation, which says revelation is nothing but a superficial, supernatural, a fantasy of humankind. And our minds are shaped by this, the understandings, by these teachings. And we deny to denounce them. We deny to, leave them go. Maybe this is how we imprison ourselves. Maybe this is why we cannot have a complete understanding of our experiences, our own experiences, whatever is shown to us. We see only one or two of them. Any comment, questions? So I was planning to read the example, but let's leave it to next week. We have only a few minutes left. So I guess we can, yeah, the rest of the text is also the part after the example referring to parts in the example. So maybe it is better to study next week altogether. So if you have any remarks, questions, comments now, let's hear them. Otherwise, we can also end the discussion a few minutes earlier. But I'm sure you have some questions and comments. I have no doubt. So that's a great example that a human being like myself cannot be right all the time. So I was wrong. Nobody has any comment, questions. Okay, let's end the discussion here, inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين